part of the problem with Ukraine has been, in terms of, well, they've got big issues, right? One of them has been explaining why it's important to the American people, right? The administration hasn't really accomplished that yet, right? And trying to say, why are we doing this, right? They should have been doing it from the very start.
Didn't you see them wave their flags in Congress?
Yeah, well,
they waved the Ukrainian flags. I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, well,
they explained it.
They explained it. Here we go.
Just wave the flag.
Yeah, but you remember at the very beginning, everybody had a Ukrainian flag on their in front of their house.
To see it in Congress when they're passing that aid bill, it's like, who handed those out?
Yeah.
Where'd you get those?
Well, exactly.
Did you guys get those from home?
Yeah.
Like, who's telling you to wave those?
Got them from Amazon.
This whole thing seems coordinated. You want to tell me about how this happened?
Plus, also, where's the money go? That's the other big issue, is the transparency and how are we spending this money? How are we spending your money, the taxpayers' money? And look, I fall down on the side of I don't want to see Putin win, and he will win, without significant support that gets to the point where he feels so much pain, he actually negotiates a settlement, right? We're not going to get to a victory in this war. That's bullshit. The idea that Ukraine is going to win the war and claim all their territory, bullshit. It's not going to happen. You think they're going to reclaim Crimea? Putin's going to give that up, right? He'll probably go to tactical nuclear weapons on the battlefield before he does that, right? And so you've got to hurt him enough so that he says, oh, fuck it, okay? Because if he's hurt enough, that means at home he's facing some dissent, right? And that's the big thing for him. He doesn't, he just wants to hold on to power, right?
I hear two versions of what's going on. Mm-hmm. I hear the war has already been won by Russia, and Ukraine is down to like a minimum amount of soldiers. Mm-hmm. They've lost 500,000 people. Rough estimates, like no one really knows what the real estimates are.
Yeah.
And then I've heard other stories where Ukraine is actually doing much better than people think, and Russia has hemorrhaged people because they're essentially just sending people into the front line. They're sending prisoners, they're just using bodies to win this. And
well, both sides are accurate. Both sides are true, right? So. Yeah, Ukraine has been hurting. They have Russia's got a 3-to-1 manpower advantage in terms of population, right? What they can do to recruit and put more people on the battlefield. And Russia has no problem with sort of a meat grinder strategy, right? Just throw bodies at it, right? And the stats on fatalities, on casualties on both sides are completely bullshit. There's no transparency, really, and it's kind of understandable why. You don't want to tell the other side how many soldiers you've lost or injured. Zelensky came out a while back and said, we've suffered 31,000, fatalities on the battlefield. It's higher than that, and it's higher on the Russian side, right? Because of their strategy and the way Putin doesn't really care, so he throws bodies at it. The Russians are making headway on the east, right? And they are making an effort to push through those frontline defenses that Ukraine has up on the eastern side of Ukraine, and the lack of armaments, the lack of munitions, while Congress in the U.S. couldn't figure out what they wanted to do, that was a decided problem for Ukraine, right? If that continued, then Russia will win. They will push through, and they will eventually end up in Kyiv. And look, Putin's already engaged in shenanigans in Moldova, in Georgia, right? They're working very hard behind the scenes in Georgia, right, to split Georgia away from the EU, right? And that's because they're worried that Georgia could eventually, be part of the European Union, and they don't want that. And so they're engaged in all sorts of activity there off the radar, which they do very well, right?
What does that mean?
Disinformation and political influence campaigns, instilling personnel that are there's a party there in Georgia, the Georgian Dream Party or something that's pro-Kremlin. And they're pushing very hard on a variety of fronts, right? They're pushing a bill that's sort of like a foreign agent bill, which is it's a Russian tactic, right? To basically, single out anybody who's got foreign influence or foreign involvement. And that could be NGOs, it could be media, independent media. And the Russians have used that foreign agent bill very successfully. My point is that it depends on your thought process. If you think that no, okay, Putin takes Ukraine, who gives a fuck, right? And that's all. That's all that's going to happen. He's not going to try to reconstitute the former Soviet Union in some fashion by going after a couple other states, right? He wants a buffer zone with the West, which is what the Soviet Union was, right? He wants to rebuild that in some fashion. Not the same, right, but in some fashion. So my experiences and other people's are different, and so that's why you end up with differing opinions, and, God bless. But mine is that he's not going to stop there. So what my belief is, you got to hurt him enough, get him to the table, and call it good. And that good may look a lot like the way things were, and in 2022 when they started the invasion. And that's going to be unsatisfying to a lot of people. But at least you end the fucking conflict, right? And fine, that's where. But I think that's where this goes. The idea that, the only outright winner will be Putin if we back off and say, we're not going to provide you with certain armaments, certain weapons to allow you to inflict enough pain to stop this. And this is a incredibly complex and dynamic environment, because the U.S. is, the White House, the Biden administration is pushing very hard on Zelensky to not attack any targets inside of Russia, right? The Ukrainian military is like, well, fuck it. Why aren't we attacking Russian oil refineries, right? And energy infrastructure like the Russians are doing inside Ukraine? That's been a tactic of the Russian military for quite some time now, right? You just, because it impacts morale of the population, it demoralizes people. So the Ukrainian military is saying, do that. The White House is saying, no, we don't want to escalate, so don't do that, right? Now, the other side of that coin is, if you fuck over the Russian energy infrastructure, what does that do to oil prices around the world, and what does it do to gas prices at the pump when you're in an election year? I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist.
Oh boy!
But then you got the Europeans, and Macron is over there saying, well, if Kyiv asks, I can see putting French troops on the ground in Ukraine.
Well, he's trying to distract from the fact that his wife's a man, right?
Yeah.
Bro,
I like that. No,
that is the wildest one I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And the fact that Candace Owen is like, I stake my reputation on this.
God.
Like, are you fucking sure?
Yeah. Is this where you want to go? Is this how you want to be known?
I'm so confused by that one.